Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Ridgecrest City Council. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. with roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Here.
Mr. Blades,
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Present.
Mr. Heyman,
Present.
Ms. Breeden. Present. 5 present, we have a quorum.
Okay, next is approval of our agenda for this evening. Are there any changes for the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Yay, 5 ayes, motion carries.
Fantastic. Next is public comment on our closed session. We'll be going into closed session under California Government Code Section 5497 for public employee performance evaluation for our city manager. Is there any public comment on closed session? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment on closed session. We'll go ahead and enter in closed session. We'll return at regular session at 6 p.m. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our apologies for being a few minutes late. We had one final issue to wrap up. Thank you for your patience. We'll go ahead and begin our regular session, and this evening we have a special set of guests that are going to be leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance. If I could ask the Den 2, the Arrow of Light Scouts from Cub Scout Pack 341 to come forward for our Pledge of Allegiance. And you guys can just line up right in front. Okay. Whoever's leading it, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'd everyone please stand for the invocation. Councilman Rajratnam.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Lord, thank you for the opportunity which you have given to us to serve this community, Lord. Lord, pray for our country. Lord, pray for the upcoming elections. Lord, give this country good leadership. Lord, let this country a beacon of hope for so many countries, Lord. Lord, we pray for the troops who are in harm's way. Protect them from all evil. Lord, pray for Ridgecrest. Lord, especially pray for these Boy Scouts, young boys who are here, Lord. Be with them as they grow. Give them your wisdom, your knowledge, and let them learn good life values as they grow up and be good citizens of this community, Lord. Lord, be with us during this meeting. Lord, as we discuss many issues, let our decisions be beneficial and useful and productive for this community. Bless each one of us here. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Scouts, for being here, and we would invite you to go ahead and feel free to stay for a few minutes of the public session.
Mr. Mayor, could I say something?
Absolutely.
I would like to thank them, and I personally am so proud to have been involved in all of this.
See how they do in a minute.
So much. What a good example you give to us. Thank you.
Okay, next would be attorney report out of closed session. Martin?
By the council, which was the evaluation of the city manager. No reportable actions were taken by the council during that time. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comment, but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section is limited to 1 hour, and each speaker is asked to provide his or her name and address. Is there any public comment from the floor?
Hello, my name is Garrett Bruin. 208 Barbara Avenue. I just wanted to say that the project on the community pool has been so far so good. I've been reading about it. I know it's great for this community. Thank you, Council, for helping us do this and giving us this pool.
Hello, my name is Brenton Studi, 305 East Howloid. I wish we had a Shrek theme park here.
Anything else?
Hi, my name is Nicholas Uslinger, 524 West Coral Avenue, and I think we should have a amusement park, not that big and not that small, but for our entertainment because weekends can be so boring.
Thank you, sir.
Sharon Bruin, 208 Barber Ave. 2 years ago, my husband made a deal with me to run for mayor. He won with the goal of one day seeing our 4 children swim in a City of Ridgecrest public pool. He didn't meet his goal in 2 years. He asked me, and now he's asking the people of Ridgecrest to help him with his goal to have a public pool. Please vote for my husband, Eric Bruin, and Measure P. And honey, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Council. Mike Neal. And, commend these sturdy young men for coming up here to speak in front of the public. Even adults get really nervous doing this a lot of times. I've been doing this for 15 plus years, and I get nervous sometimes. I won't say why, but anyway, I do. So, listen with interest to the last council discussion on video, because I wasn't here, about the GA and the water issue and so forth and so on. And I noted it was really interesting. There was a lot of discussion amongst the council members, which is good to see for a change. It's, most of the time it's, well, I don't have anything to say, guys, and nobody else except Kyle does. So that's usually how it goes. But in this case, 2 citizens came up after the council discussion went on for some time, and they brought up what at this point in time really is the most important issue that hasn't really been scientifically looked at or evaluated thoroughly whatsoever that could potentially solve a lot of the problem of water supply in this valley, and that's conservation. I cannot think of any guided effort done by knowledgeable consultants or any group over all these years that the GA has been in place to give us any numbers saying, well, if we could just get all the citizens to eliminate the grass in all their front yards, here's how much water we could save. And then, add on to that other kinds of plants like broadleaf trees that use a lot of water. That's all readily doable just with the time and the effort. People who know, a little bit about how to calculate transpiration, water loss, and there's all kinds of people out there that know how to do this. We're looking at a situation where we're basically about, according to, we'll just take the numbers as have been thrown out as accurate, which I'm not sure they are, but let's just take what we got at present. About 4,000 acre feet per year overdraft after we, of course, it's a done deal. We're going to get rid of the ag guys. We're going to kick them out. Well, we all know if we can ever get Mr. Strand to get busy and get this wastewater plant in action and getting built, that it's going to give us over 2,000 acre feet of recycled water that we can make use of. Well, that's half of it right there. So how much could we save if we actually got people to conserve and, not particularly thrilled by it, but make it look like portions of Las Vegas where there's, more rock, more less water-thirsty plants and so forth and so on. That is a serious lack on the part of the GA and needs to be something that the council pushes their representative to push at the GA meetings. I guarantee you probably could not be a problem to get the water district rep to push that as an issue. The problem, of course, it needs 3 votes. And we've had obstruction votes on that GA for years from Mineo County, who all he cares about is you don't get 1 gallon of water out of the aqueduct, and that's it. San Bernardino County is lightly invested, and that leaves a 3. And the county itself, I have not yet decided who actually runs the county and makes the decisions, but my vote goes firmly with the lawyer behind the scenes. And he lives in Bakersfield, and he doesn't really care. It's when you're not invested or you're not here, you need to listen to what Mr. Ron Kaczynski had to say at the last Water District meeting. He's done calculations, and he's probably going to firm it all up and flesh it out more. He said the pipeline, the cost of the water could easily cost people in this valley $600 extra a month. That's catastrophic. Even if it's overestimating by 2 and it's only $300 a month extra in cost, that's catastrophic. That's going to, like I said, put a knife in the economic heart of this valley, and that needs to be avoided at all costs. Instead of plunging ahead with the pipeline dream, call it the pipeline from HELL, that's going to kill this valley if it's continue to be pursued. You need to think about this very seriously, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, I believe there is public comment on the phone. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. This is Mike Sanat. In the spirit of conservation, I've been observing and taking photographs of the large, I think it's about 7 acres of grass, beautiful grass out behind the city hall, surrounded by all the pine trees. And I've been by there a couple times, and the water's been running off the sidewalk, and the water was running in the middle of the day. So I would suggest that at least half of that grass and fully a half of the trees, the pine trees that are lining the entire City Hall complex, could be eliminated and replaced. And the water usage, I think the city has 300 acre-feet a year on the allotment under the sustainability plan, and that's a lot of money relatively to the 750 acre-feet that the Groundwater Authority just purchased. And I would appreciate a council discussion on the wastewater treatment facility, the status of construction, and the intended time frame for negotiations with the Groundwater Authority relative to the option agreement that the Groundwater Authority purchased from the city to buy the treated wastewater. If anybody would like to respond to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. We'll get some communication to you as far as the timeline as it stands right now on the wastewater. Okay. Okay. Any other public comment? Oh, one more from the floor.
Good evening, City Council. Scott Miller, 341 East Wilson. You probably can't answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The question was asked, and you're going to get back to the caller. However, what if the rest of the citizens want to hear the answer to that? How will we be notified, or how can we hear the answer? I'm going to stand here for 4 minutes and 40 seconds, actually. Seriously, I'm going to stand here for 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Is that, there's no way, you know what? I'll ask the city attorney. Mr. Attorney, you're not part of council. Is there a way that the community can be notified of the answer to that question? You're not part of council, you're the city attorney.
What is this? Is this a stubborn contest?
This is. It's a good question. I just want to know the answer.
The next one is council announcements and direction, and we'll be happy to address it.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to council announcements and direction. So in regards to the wastewater plant, Mr. Strand, would you like to give a little bit of insight onto where we're at in the timeline?
Yeah, I can do that during my city manager comments.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir. In regards to any other council announcements or direction, I would encourage anybody who is not able to stay for the full course of the meeting, that again, it will be on our YouTube channel as well as in the full video with some explanation from Chief Manager, from City Manager Strand. As far as the status on the wastewater, I can tell you that there has been significant progress. In regards to council announcements, I'm going to go ahead and choose to start. I want to thank once again Cub Scout Pack 341 for being here this evening. I chose to dress up with them because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and obviously two of the presenters are near and dear to my heart. This group is our Arrow of Light. These are 5th graders getting ready to move into Boy Scouts and to 6th grade. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for taking a role in your community and in your city, and I thank you for being here. They also are going to be out in force this weekend at our Desert Empire Fair, which is starting on Friday night. I encourage everyone in our community to come out. It is one of our best events. Last year, we had a crowd that was amazing, and we only hope that this year we can have the same. And so if you see anybody out in these tan uniforms parking cars, give them a wave, say hello, thank them for their service to the community. It's appreciated. The only other one I wanted to go ahead and mention was that we have been able to confirm that Admiral Hash is doing a reception that will be open to the public on November the 3rd at the Spring Hill Suites. If you'd like to contact China Lake Alliance, that is an open to the public event. It is $25 for lunch, but it's an opportunity to hear from the Admiral some of the direction in regards to the base if you're interested. Is there any other council announcements, starting with Peggy?
No, you took mine on the fair. Thank you.
Scott?
I have none.
I just want to commend the Boy Scouts for being here and for your exemplary life in these communities. God bless you for what you are doing. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thanks for the parents who are encouraging their children to take part in these Boy Scouts. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. I really appreciate that. Last week, I was able to have Girl Scout troop come and visit the City Hall, and it was impressive. I love to see the minds working, and I love to see the future of this community, right? And Boy Scouts across America. You guys are doing us all proud, and I'm sure your parents are proud of you, and I appreciate you guys being here. The only other thing, I don't really have any direction for staff or anything else, but I needed to say, I think it needs saying that the reason things changed a little bit, because Scott Miller, that's what you were doing. You were sitting up here trying to make a point. Okay, well, things changed because the public asked for things to change a little bit in public comment. That's the only reason they changed, and there's nothing stifled. We're talking just as much as we've ever talked. I probably talk too much still. I think that's still something that happens. Okay, so I also want to say about the wastewater plant. We've discussed it a few times in council. We've also had some infrastructure meetings where we've talked about it, the progress of the wastewater treatment plant. So feel free to come to an infrastructure meeting. We'll talk about it there as well. That's where all of the work in this city, a lot of the work in this city happens in those committee meetings. If you've been doing this for a while, you know how they go. Like Mike, you know how these meetings go. Like, I don't need to tell you how. But if you're not familiar with all these meetings, that's where the stuff happens. That's also where you get a very captive audience. You come to a committee meeting, there's probably only going to be 2 or 3 people from the public there. They're probably just going to be listening in, or maybe they have one thing to talk about. And you have 2 council people and a planning commissioner and a city staff sitting there, a captive audience, to discuss anything within the purview of that committee. And it's helpful. It's a pretty large voice within the community just to show up to one of those meetings. So if you have a question, if it's on money, show up to a finance meeting. Matter of fact, we took the Girl Scouts to a finance meeting, and the mayor started delving into numbers, and I think they glossed over. But
we talked about a lot. We talked about dogs a lot.
Well, yeah, you did. You got a little off topic, so I had to rein it in. I can't stress enough how important those meetings are. So let's not let those die, because eventually you're going to see a point to where the staff, I'm sure they look at their council and go, what are we doing these for? You're keeping us after hours to show up to these meetings and nobody comes to them. But we'll keep having them until they're no longer useful. Anyway, that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you much. And thank you to our city clerk, Ms. Charlon. I forgot that for each of the boys that did the Pledge of Allegiance, I have a city pin for you. If I can have one of the leaders come up and I can give these to them for each of the boys. Okay. Next item is our consent agenda, our consent calendar. All items listed on consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. I will now read each item. We have two items. First is proposed action to approve the draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated October 5th, 2022. And the second is announcing proclamations prepared for the month of October and scheduled date of presentation. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar as presented?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, actually, would any member of the public like an item pulled? That line's missing.
So, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, I would like to pull something and then comment on it real quick. It won't take much, but I would like to pull number 2.
Pulling, Councilman Blades would like to add item number 2 pulled. Any other member of the council wish to have an item pulled? Any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Hearing none. Okay, we'll bring back for discussion item number 2.
Yes, and I'll keep the comments brief. The reason I asked for it to be pulled is I wanted it to be recognized here in the public, not a city council meeting, that you know, we're the month of October, so we're given a proclamation to the Altrusa Club. It's a little bit close to my heart. I'm not going to discuss personal reasons, but just so everybody knows, I will be presenting this proclamation to the Altrusa Club throughout the week at one of their meetings. Didn't want it to go unnoticed. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other discussion from the public or council on item number 2? I'll just say, hopefully, I win a tree this year. And we'll see him at Santa's Art Shop. Hearing none, do I need to bring them back and I need to approve them as each individual separate, correct?
No, you can do them together.
Okay. I can now bring them together. Okay, is there a motion with any other public discussion? No council discussion? Do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar for both items as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is item number 3. This is discussion regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Mr. Heyman.
Thank you, Mayor. So the GA did meet on October 12th, and I will go over and give a review of the agenda items. So beginning with agenda item 9, resolution 06-22, authorizing staff to execute a lease agreement with the state of California for monitoring well access. So basically what that involved was the getting a lease agreement from the state to access wells at the old sawmill site, which is north of south of Little Lake, kind of close to the 9 Mile Kennedy Metals turnoff up in that area of the basin. And so it will give us access to wells that the old sawmill had for monitoring purposes. And so it was approved. Item number 10, resolution 07-22, approving an agreement with AVAC, which is Antelope Valley East Kern Water, for pipeline alignment study support and deposit. And so basically that entailed, they're doing the pipeline study, and it will involve AVAC in that process. And so there's going to be a $5,000 deposit for data sharing and cost recovery vital to imported water pipeline alignment study. So this assures that the reimbursement of AVAC for costs incurred for the meetings, data collection, and dissemination and design plan check related to this data request. So AVAC will be working with the consulting agency to put together this pipeline study. And so it just assures that they won't be in the hole for participating in that and sharing the data. And so that was approved with the 5 A's from ayes from the board. And so item number 11 was approval letter to AVAC regarding imported water connection. And so the board approved a letter to AVAC updating our status and goals with the AVAC connection, including our, progress we're making with the purchase of imported water. And so that letter was approved to be sent. That was approved with 4 ayes and 1 nay from the Water District. Moving on to item number 12, Resolution 08-22, approving Urban Community Drought Relief Program application. Let's see here. So basically, it dealt with consolidating failed wells. And in a nutshell, well mitigation program, primary well mitigation program involves a couple routes for these folks to take. One would be going through DWR, USDRG, and public well rehab, and consolidate private wells into a public system to be able to provide water to those requiring it. And the other option is private well owners seeking help through Cal OES. And I believe that's about it. So that was approved with 5 ayes. Item number 13, which was the shallow well impact mitigation program. Basically, it was just no action required, but an update on where we sit with the shallow well mitigation. There's applications for well owners to pursue help with the shallow well mitigation, and so those are currently back before, will come back before the board for approval. And so that was just input taken in. And moving on to item number 14 was the review and potential adoption of the current 2023 budget, which was approved. So that was pretty much the brunt of the meeting. There was the general manager, or not the general manager's report, but the Stetson Engineering's report. I had a couple highlights here. They did go over in the shallow well mitigation. There's a couple wells that are currently dry, which I could go back and touch base back on the shallow well mitigation. Looking at some of the data that shows where we sit with that, during the groundwater sustainability plan, the GSP development, the calibrated numerical groundwater flow model was used to evaluate potential future impacts to shallow wells in the Indian Wells Valley due to the chronic lowering of groundwater levels. The results of this analysis indicated that under baseline conditions, no projects and management actions implemented by the board, that approximately 25% of the shallow wells, 230 shallow wells, would be impacted by lowering of the groundwater levels by 2040 and would require mitigation. Under conditions simulating the GSP projects and management actions being implemented, 22 wells were anticipated being impacted prior to sustainability reached by 2040. The results of this analysis of impacted shallow wells form the basis of the shallow well impact mitigation program, which is that's currently being implemented by the board. There are 2 applications for mitigation assistance that have been submitted to the board for review, and that's what I was alluding to earlier about those applications will be approved. But back to the, a couple of wells that have gone dry. There's one on Stark Street east of Ridgecrest and another one at Heritage Village. So those wells are both needing assistance, and currently that assistance is being provided. So along with that, let's see. Well, I think I'll just kind of keep it at that. That was pretty much the meeting in a nutshell. One of the things I did want to address tonight, Ricka, did we get a copy of?
There's copies down there, and John can put it on the screen right now.
Okay.
There you go. Do you need a copy?
Yeah, let's grab copies for. everybody's got a copy of it. So basically, this slide was a slide that was shown at the last GA meeting. So quite often, we get comments from individuals that we're not being transparent on, what it's going to cost the public in regards to infrastructure, cost of water, and what the bottom line will be. So this slide addresses that. So showing option number 1, annual imported water demand of 5,000 acre feet. Capital costs for infrastructure, it gives you that amount. One-time water supplies acquisition, moving across the line there, annual O&M cost, annual service cost, and then down at the end, Indian Wells, or the GA cost per acre foot. And then option number 2 is showing that the first option being with LADWP. So option number 2 is showing the option with AVEC, again with 5,000 acre feet, and then the cost, the costs across the line, showing the end result of the cost per acre foot. And so one of the things I want to point out in this is that we are being transparent in regards to what the costs are. We know what we have a pretty good idea of what the costs are going to be. There's a pipeline study that's being currently performed, and that's going to bring things more into perspective and give more finite costs and direction that we'll be taking. Looking at these costs, so we were assuming that at this time that 5,000 acre feet would be the amount that was required. So currently we know that the water district not buying water or providing water for Searles cuts that almost in half. So these costs could be significantly lower. And we're also assuming that we're looking at 50% of the cost of the infrastructure being provided through grants. So we're being conservative on that. Currently, we're sitting at 100% funding for the projects that we have gone through up to this point with the GA. And so based on that, if we continue to garner grants and at the rate that we're doing, we could possibly end up with if not 100%, coverage of the infrastructure cost, a very great amount of it covered. So these costs would actually be substantially lower than what we're currently looking at. So I just wanted to bring this up to the public because, like I said, it's something that we get comments about that out in the public that we're not being transparent enough for it. So I'd also like to bring up too that the cost of water, a lot of folks out there want to say that we haven't looked at the other options available. And I can tell you that the GA has looked at the other options available. A big one is brackish water. Since 2010, I believe the Water District has been studying brackish water. And in more recent times, the brackish water group with Coastal Geothermal, the Searles Valley, the Water District, and I believe Mojave Pistachios. So there's been ample time to look at brackish water. We have looked at it from the GA's perspective. Recent findings show that the cost of brackish water back in 2000, at the end of one of the studies that was done by the Water District, which I have copies of, but I'm just going to generically lay it out there. But one of those studies come out with the cost would be, I believe, in the $2,700 range or something along in that line. These costs were dated back to 2000, say 10 or 12. Those costs today would be substantially more. In a recent meeting at the Water District, the general manager, Don Zadiba, came out and when one of his board members addressed the brackish water project, informed him that brackish water is too costly. It's not a real feasible project. And so I'd like to put that to rest. The other aspect of it, you'll hear people bring up desalinization. And so in this valley, desalinization means brackish water. It means you're going to take brackish water and try to remove the TDSs, or the total dissolved solids, and use it. Again, the costs are prohibitive. And so, along with that, you're chronically lowering the groundwater and storage, which is a basic tenet from SGMA that's not an acceptable result. And so I think it's disingenuous for people to say that we know the GA hasn't gone out and looked at these other options. They are looking at it from an exhaustive state. And so And if something comes up that does benefit this valley and this basin, you can bet that the Groundwater Authority is going to be very open-eyed to it. And so, again, when we look at cost, everyone's concerned about the cost. And, you know, dating and looking at these reports that I reflect back to on the brackish water studies, back then they knew, and they stated in those reports, that they knew that we needed alternative water. They knew there was an issue with it. They've had a decade or longer to come up with a plan. They haven't come up with a plan. And well, I guess you could say they've come up with a plan, but it's not a viable plan. Everybody agrees that imported water is a necessary component of groundwater sustainability in this basin. And the Water District has known this for a very long time. The Water District could indeed bond out their water that they need and lower the replenishment fee costs that the constituents of Ridgecrest are paying for. The Water District likes to, you know, say that, well, they're paying for it. Well, I hate to say it, but it's, the brunt of it is carried by me, everyone at this board, probably any of you that live in town. You know, we're paying the water rates. And so they could bond that amount that they need, and they could lower that replenishment fee by 75%. That's a big number, but again, they haven't come to the table to be a part of the action steps to, you know, that's required to do that. So I don't know if I really have a whole lot more to say. Kyle, did you want to chime in on this conversation?
No significant chime in. You actually tackled something I was going to ask you. So I know not a lot of people watching will remember, but several months back, I asked you about the role of the Groundwater Authority in exploration, right? And looking for data and explore. And really, because I wanted to, just for the public, delve into what's the difference between what the Groundwater Authority does and then what the Water District is doing. The Water District does a lot of work towards exploration and research, and of course the brackish water study is a big part of that. Now on that conversation, tacked on is what is being looked at besides what we see here, right? Now you already touched on it, but I'm just trying to rehash it because I think it's important that the public understands that there's a few options of ways to fix this basin. Conservation, like Mike Neal was saying, you know, conservation is one, but what I think everybody has concluded, even the Water District, the GA, engineers, scientists, anybody worth listening, you know, anybody worth listening to has said that we can't conserve our way completely out of this. We can help the situation by conservation, but it would have to be draconian. The other way to do is imported water, and I have heard a lot of people say, that's a horrible idea. And my response to most folks is always this: yeah, it's not a great idea, but it's the best of the horrible ideas, right? Nobody likes where we're at. I think we should always push to continue to gather data. I think that needs to never stop. But I do wonder where that line, at some point, are we stepping on, you know, not we, but the Groundwater Authority, are they getting into the area where the Water District is gathering data? Because if they're already doing it, why would the GA go out and do it? Or maybe they do need to do it. Maybe there's just not enough comprehensive data. But if I go back to you, the GA, or the engineers, I missed the last meeting, so I'm at a loss here. But what other options? Can you dive into that? What the Groundwater Authority has looked into besides just imported water? Is this the only thing that the Groundwater Authority is looking at? And at least the last time I read the GSP, there were other ideas on the table. There were other things being thought about. But it seems that this one's driving for a reason. There's a reason this is the leading idea. It's because it's time sensitive. Also, I think it needs to be added that through Sigma, and I know I'm boring people. Look, the Boy Scouts just left. I'm used to that. It happens. Through Sigma, there's only really one way to get the basin under control, and that's through imported water, because if conservation can't do it, then it has to be imported water, because even pulling brackish water and treating it through desalinization doesn't get us into compliance. What else has the GA looked at? Has it just been, I just want you to give the public a warm and fuzzy that the GA is not just focused
No, I think
on imported water.
I mean, if you look at it, we're pretty limited in the options. But the, you know, the exploration of the valley in itself, you know, is there water that we, you know, some tend to believe that there's, you know, other water we just haven't found it yet.
Well, there was SkyTim data at some point done by
Right.
the Water District, and I think
And
that was,
So I believe that
I think the term
information.
inconclusive can be used.
So that, I mean, that's one area but there are wells that have been drilled, have already been drilled out in the Black Hills. There's wells that will be drilled up in the north end of the basin. The continuation of monitoring of the current water in the valley is still an ongoing process. We look at water banking, you know, a lot of people want to, you know, state that the State Water Project, you're not going to get, you know, you're only going to get a very minimal amount, but it's not true based on historical records. You know, it averages out to 62%. So in wet years, you're going to have overage. That water could be banked, so that gives more water into the system. In dry years, we won't have as much water, so we may have to pump. So you're not, you know, probably in the current, you know, state of events, going to get away from having to rely back on that groundwater. So, I mean, again, that's why it's so important to maintain that groundwater in storage. So the brackish waters, you know, issues have been looked at. So water banking in general, outside of the source of you know, say, you know, utilizing DWP, you know, they've looked into DWP water banking in the valley. There's some constraints to water banking because you can't just put water into the ground anywhere based on the geological, you know, type of soils that's, you know, in different portions of the valley. Some areas are more conducive to banking than others, so that's, you know, all these things have to be taken into consideration. But yeah, I think it's, you know, I wouldn't say it's completely exhausted as far as options, you know, that the GA is looking at, because they're very open to anything that would, you know, be a positive attribute to fixing and helping with the overall solution. So, you know, one of the things I'd like to state too is I found it very disheartening last meeting, because here we were discussing at the council this new construction that's going on in town, Chipotle and the Starbucks over in that area, and, you know, putting in water, drought tolerant water, you know, conservative type plants. And there was calls, you know, or calls in from the public, you know, and the conversation went around to, you know, discussing whether that's too many plants. We shouldn't be putting those plants in. I thought, here we are discussing the ability, or should we put in a few small drought tolerant plants around some new construction, and we have several thousand acres of trees, but, you know, sucking up water out in the basin. I just found that kind of a unique, disheartening conversation. So, so my answer is yes, we should plant, you know, some drought tolerant plants around and we do have the ability to continue conserving. That's another option that's been looked at. Can you conserve yourself out of this? And time and again, I think it comes to the same conclusion that no, you're not going to conserve your way out of this. If we were to conserve everything and everybody got a 55-gallon barrel of water delivered to them, would we be at a net neutral? Maybe. I don't know. We'd have to look at those numbers even harder. I don't think you get there. And with that, where's our growth? Where's our city? What are we doing in the future? So this is big picture. We need to look at, you know, what are we doing? How is it going to affect this basin, this base, this town, and for not right now, but for the future.
Well, and if I may, Scott, what I wanted to add is, I think sometimes, and I'm not going to just lay this on the public, sometimes I make this mistake myself. I think too linearly, right, too one-directional, and I focus on one thing. There's a lot of things being done all at the same time, right? So I'm not trying to say that the Groundwater Authority has all the answers, or the Water District has all the answers, the city has all the answers. Nobody has all those answers, but I can say that at least the direction, the general direction we're moving right now is as good as we can be moving. And there's a lot of things being taken into factor. And you touched on one of them. We have to worry about growth as a city council. We have to worry about quality of life. Right, like so Mike Sanat brought up a good point that I wanted to touch on earlier. You got a lot of grass out there, using a lot of water. Yeah, that's true. But the quality of life of the people who live here, man, that park is chocked full. You can drive by at random hours and it's just full of people. That means something to the people who live here. So then we have, so not we, I'm going to use a proverbial we, right? Then the decision has to be made, do we balance that out? Where's the good? Are we getting enough good out of that as compared to what we're paying for the imported water? Yeah, I think right now, yeah.
Yeah,
I think-
and there, you know, there is areas to conserve. I've been hit up a few different times on, you know, how could I be in support of a pool when I sit on this board, or, you know, the GA, and be, you know, pro pool, where we're gonna get this water. And for me, it's pretty simple. You know, we can conserve the water. We could take the grass, you know, along or just around the Kerr McGee Center here, and I can guarantee you that that's enough water to supplement the daily evaporative effect of a pool. So, I mean, there's ways to conserve. You know, we can get more, you know, AC and decrease swamp coolers we could take on. And I like the approach that was brought up earlier by one of the comments about, you know, moving more into that xeriscape. You look at Arizona, they're quite a few years ahead of us on, you know, landscaping, and you know, St. George, Utah's taken on a policy to, you know, you can have 1/3 green and the rest has got to be rock and desertscape in your yards. And they're in a water crisis up there far bigger than ours. So yes, I think, and I will push for it personally to continue that conservation down to a point where, yes, we are a tight ship on conservation. And
Well,
we
yeah.
need to go there. I think that's a given, and no one's going to argue that
The
point.
Water District had a really good program. It was like
They-
a cash for grass going on, and that was really cool. And I heard, this was a couple of months ago, and I thought I heard one of the board members bring it up. It might have been Stan Rotorua bring it back up, and I don't think that the board widely received it. Again, I'm not gonna pretend I know what their finances look like. That's not my business. They're running their board and we're running ours. But we can sure bring up whatever issues that we see are issues.
No, and I think the Water District did a great job in rallying the town to conserve. And I think there's others that can answer the more exact number, but it's been thrown around that as much as 30% conservation occurred in the.
Well, it was enough that when I went out to visit the wastewater plant, they said that flow had been restricted enough, they had to start adding water to get stuff down the pipes to get to the wastewater, which is good. That's a positive thing. That's all good. But I just wanted to make the overall point to the community is let's not think, you know, linearly. All right, that's not how things work. That's not how you run a city. The way you run a city is, well, it's tedious, monotonous work. It's hard decisions. I mean, Ricka knows better than anybody, right? The tedium, and it's a lot of things all at once that have to be balanced. And well, we'll just continue to do that as best we can with the staff's good support. Thank you.
That's all I have. So any comments from the board? Any other comments from council?
Somebody came to me the other day and said, alluding that the Water District had said they didn't think we needed to import water. And my concern was, this was my response, so you are more up on it than I am at this point in time, although I had 7.5 years of involvement and 20 more before that on the Water District and on the GA. I'm wondering if we say that the reason giving is we don't need to import water because we have no way of getting it here. And my response to them, and so if I'm wrong, someone please share and correct me, was that we will never be able to get grant money to import water. To build an infrastructure if we don't have water to import. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're.
So the first step is
Right.
importing the water, and then if we find out at some point in time we do not need that imported water, then we can sell it for more money than we ever paid for it. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're exactly right. A lot of these water, let's call them purveyors, you know, say like ABEC, and they don't want to talk to you unless you have water in hand to come to the table with. So that's exactly right.
So we could go to the state and get perhaps all the money, or at least a good portion of it, in grant to build the infrastructure.
Correct. So there's a very, very high likelihood that we will receive greater amounts than the 50% that we are estimating in this graph that's behind me.
If we had water.
If we have water and we can go and shore up our imported water, that we have it, then yes. And, you know, when in previous discussions with the Water District, you know, and I've heard the water district say many times that they believe that we need imported water. So I mean, I think everybody's on the same page with that. You know, you'll hear most everybody, you know, that you talk to and that has been following along with this, that we need imported water. But when it came to the actual purchasing of the water, we call it the cart before the horse. Some said, well, we need to get the infrastructure built first. We don't want to support imported water, or we don't want to support it because you don't have a GSP. Well, we have a GSP, and we have grant funding to initiate the #1 primary project, which is imported water. The state understands that, they recognize it, everybody recognizes it. And so, you know, that gets me back to this point where, you know, with the water district, I mean, I don't want to make this a topic just about the water district, but I can say that, you know, if the water district, you know, came on board with, you know, the GA and the imported water, things would move along much faster. I think we would be in a better position. I think eventually we're going to all get there. I'm pretty optimistic about that. It's just everybody has their little spot that they've, you know, jockeyed themselves into, and they're kind of standing with it. But in the end, I think it'll be a you know, a cohesive project, and we'll be successful.
Thank you.
Solomon?
A couple of questions, Councilman Heyman. So when we are saying buying water, so we are buying water rights, right? Table year water rights.
Yes.
So we have to show we bought 5,000 acre feet before we even apply for some grants for the infrastructure.
I would not, you know, I can't answer that specifically, saying that we have to have the 5,000 acre feet. I don't believe so. I believe that we have to have water purchased and be in the process of moving forward with the actions that we're taking to put this whole plan together.
So far, we have a LOI for 750.
The current purchase is for 750 acre feet.
So it's still in that letter of intent stage, or?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Is that still in letter of intent stage? Or?
Yes, it is moving. It is moving forward.
So do we know when we will be buying that?
It's kind of a long process, but they have to go through various hoops, whether, you know, with CEQA and the different the individual selling the water, and they have to work with their agency, and then you have the state involved, and so, yeah. But we're hoping by November-ish timeframe, and I'll be able to report back. I'll keep everybody updated on that progress as it moves forward.
Sure, yeah. And then the imported water cost, this is 3 years old, so the cost would have gone up maybe 25%.
The cost of water, well, cost of infrastructure and water, you know, that brings up a point, because back when we were looking at, you know, purchasing water, had we purchased it back when we were, you know, the GA as a whole was saying we should purchase it, you know, the interest rates were substantially lower. And so, like with the water district, they could have purchased, you know, had bonding and purchased their required amount, and probably would have saved a lot of money. So,
so this can keep on going up.
yes, so time is important. And so when you look at the, you know, cost of water itself, we've shown from the time that we started looking at imported water, it has gone up. Cost of infrastructure, and, you know, those prices are no doubt going up. Yeah.
So do we have an estimate how much it has gone up since 2019?
I don't have an exact amount, but, you know, with what we deal with in the city here, when we look at projects that we've, you know, approved or looked at putting together, and then, you know, due to various reasons, 6 months went by or a year went by, you know, some of those have gone up, what, 20, 30%? I mean, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I only have very simple comments, kind of the devil you know versus the one you don't. I agree with Mr. Blades and with everyone else. The water problem was created over 30 years. It's going to take 30 years to fix. It's not going to solve itself overnight. We did 30% conservation, fantastic. We The GA went forward with the implementation of the groundwater fee as a way to start getting these balls rolling. That led to more arguments, led to lawsuits, led to more costs. We can keep going in this circular argument with each other for another 10 years and spend another $10 million on attorney's fees and everything else, and we're most likely going to do that because either the public doesn't like our direction, or somebody else doesn't like the direction, or somebody doesn't like this position or that position, argues back and forth, and we'll play Hatfields and McCoys here over water until thy kingdom come. But the fact is that the imported water decision and the direction and the motivations and acquiring the water and getting those pieces in place are all fundamental pieces to a long-term goal. Every other conversation that anybody has ever had with me never presents anything in terms of a long-term goal. You know, they present, we don't like this, we don't like to be feed, we don't want to pay more, I don't. It's all about either self or their individual preferences with things, but not about what the long-term goal of the community is. The long-term goal of the community is to make sure that Ridgecrest and its surrounding areas have a water supply that can sustain our community, and that's what the state law, the California state, has mandated us to follow through. And it's no different than trash. I think that you'd find anybody in a personal conversation up here that says, "Oh, we love being in Trashgate 2.0, as it's been called." Yeah, we're thrilled to be up here in Trashgate 2.0. No, we're not happy about it. But we also were not at the advocacy table in 2016 when SB 1383 was passed. And neither were you, public. That's a fact. And therefore, we have to deal with how the state is implementing it. Don't like it, but still have to follow it. And that's very similar with what this GA thing. Groundwater is an absolute critical. We've put ourselves in a bad position. We did it to ourselves. It took us 30 years to get there. It's going to take us 30 years to get out. We can all start working together, or we can continue to go back and forth and bantering and chase after the devil we don't know versus the plan that we at least have approved, have granted, have things moving forward. And that's much where I would much rather continue to move on a positive track than work on an argumentative track. With that, I will bring it from the council to the public. Is there any members of the public that would like to address water? Don't all jump up at once.
We know it's politics. God bless them all.
Hi, I'm Skip Gorman, live in Ridgecrest, believe it or not.
Just barely.
I feel like my work here is done. I was pleased what I just sat back and listened to. Engagement, a discussion. Councilman Heyman, animated. And people clicking on their mics and jumping in with questions. I've been wishing this to happen for some time, and it's finally happening. Maybe I've slightly influenced it. It would be nice. Also, it would be nice if, Councilman Heyman, you would bring in some news about the adjudication. Lawyers squirm when that word comes up. I'm sorry about that. I don't understand the squirm myself. But I would like to know what's the situation with the adjudication. Have there been meetings? Has the judge give us anybody any signs of when he may move forward on this? That's my question. Also, in my role of local Nero Wolf, what I was going to do, give a call to the local well driller. What's his name? Starts with a G. Brothers.
Garrison.
He did my well recently, and I'd just call him in and promise him a good cup of coffee perhaps, or maybe even a beer, if he'll sit and answer my questions about, from his viewpoint and from the activity of him and his crew, working on different wells with gray mud all over their pants. What's his impressions of our water level and our situation right now? I'd probably do that with, I don't know, somebody from the water board joining us. Well, Kaczynski, their newest member. That would be fun. I'd learn a lot just sitting there listening. I'd take notes. Okay, But mostly I step forward to say bravo, good. Keep the noise happening, keep the questions happening, keep the discussion happening. My friends, thank you.
Garrison and Barry's are both very willing to talk to you. Every time they talk to me, when I question them, they're wide open, willing to talk.
You can con a lot of people in with a good cup of coffee. My friends, thank you.
Thank you, Skip.
Yeah, as comment while Skip's walking away, I've actually had some pretty good conversations with Ron Kaczynski. I mean, to be honest, like if we start talking in generalities, I think that most folks agree with how things are going. There's just little details here and there that people get rubbed the wrong way, and that's understandable. Sorry, I know you were getting ready to step up. I was just making a comment, or Mike, are you next?
Okay. Chris Ellis, 709 Sidnor. I really wouldn't want to make any of these comments, but a couple of questions. For Councilman Heyman, what diameter pipeline are we proposing?
That's going to be determined in the.
So how do you know how much it's going to cost?
That's going to be determined. So what do you?
Well, you have a cost profile that you put out that is very misleading. So I'd like to understand where these are coming from.
There's nothing misleading about what sits before you. This can all be back. If you have a question about that, I suggest you come to the GA and ask those that specifically
know.
Put this. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because that would be they'd be able to answer your question.
I'd be glad to do that. I didn't realize that the people that actually go to these meetings and represent the city don't know the details of what they're
Come
presenting.
on, man, that's out of line.
So really? No. You're entitled to your
No, because I would like to know the specifics that go behind these numbers.
Right. And so it's pretty easy to say that not every specific detail that goes into the technical arena of that GA is understood by every single person that's in there.
There's a huge difference in the size of pipeline and the associated costs with these.
So you're asking a question that's answerable.
Absolutely.
And it's being studied currently, so that's your answer.
So how long does it take to study this?
Well, it may take 6 months.
Any engineer can put this together in 30 minutes. It's going to take 6 months to determine how big of a pipeline we need in order to pump 5,000 acre-feet of water, 10,000 acre-feet of water. They can't calculate head loss.
Right,
They
and
can't
those
calculate
are
elevation.
easily answerable questions from the
Absolutely,
from
they're
the
easily-
staff.
they're- okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Heyman, that study's being currently done by Provost and Pritchard.
Right.
As part of the.
Yeah, I'm just
Exactly.
curious why we're putting
And we
out
also have the
costs that
Army
we
Corps
don't
of
have to
Engineer,
back.
we also have the Army Corps of Engineer coming in to do an overview, and they said they will be done in what, 6 months, Ron? I think they have or is it?
How long have we been working on this? How long have we had our approval for the GSP? How long have we known what we want to pump? You don't have to, I mean, I know we're not, it's frustrating to me if you can't tell I'm frustrated.
So you don't know what year that the GSP is?
Oh, I
GSP was passed?
absolutely know.
Then why are you asking the question? What's your intent?
So we're 2 years into this thing, and we don't know what the cost of this pipeline is. Or we do.
You don't like the data?
I don't think the data is accurate that you're putting out.
Well, that's an
correct.
opinion.
Okay.
So you bring it to the board, and we'll see if they can't help you figure it out.
For me to figure it out, you represent the city.
I do.
Okay? The other thing I would like to point out is, and I heard it from Mayor Bruin, and I love what he had to say. We don't solve this thing by pointing the fingers at each other. Yeah, it's a fact, there's disagreements out there, but if we continue to fight with each other, we're never gonna get this solved.
Well, what did you just come up with that microphone and start tonight?
Because you're putting out false information.
Councilman Heyman, you're doing the same thing, sir. I
Okay.
apologize.
I'm not going to sit up here
okay,
any longer and have
but-
people
but
come up and try to
You're up here
create.
stumping for your position, okay? And the whole board is.
How long did it take you to work on the brackish water program and come up with what currently is the end result? And with no plan?
Okay, let me
How long
be
did it
very
take you
clear.
to-
Okay.
Let me be very clear.
Hey, it's enough.
I'm not advocating for one thing. I still have time left.
We both hope that the purpose of public comment and discussion is to share information, answer questions, and to be able to have a dialogue. I apologize, both gentlemen.
Yeah, I apologize too, because I
Are
don't usually
not
allow
going
anyone to,
down that road, which is
create this
what
kind of
we want
conflict.
for-
Well,
And I
I'm
really
sorry.
admonish you for coming up here and having the intent that you had.
That's fine. I'm interested in a solution. And I'm interested in factual data to the public. Okay? Now, when you get the study done, we'll see what the numbers are.
And we all agree that this data is at least 3 years old. Fully agreed.
This would be wrong 3 years ago.
Oh, God.
Okay?
I would not be an expert in that field, so I can't answer that.
All right. And again, apologize. I just
Fair en-
listened, I listened to what you guys are saying, and you're teeing up things, questions are getting asked.
10th
Let's-
month,
let's give
10th
it-
month of October and even years are always fun
Yes,
fun months.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you, sir.
Yes, Mike Neal, again on the water thing. So, thank you, Mr. Heyman, for putting this chart up. I'd like to hold that there is missing at least 2 columns. You put the top line numbers out there, but you don't have. What does that amount to in cost per year per household? What you also don't have is something that addresses the fact that in small print at the top, you're saying that you're assuming grant fees are going to cover half of the capital costs for infrastructure. So it's really not hard to multiply and divide, especially when you got a calculator on your phone. So, and we know that the DWP aqueduct, getting any water out of that, probably ain't going to happen. So the realistic option, which has always been talked about, is what you call the AVEC option. And you're saying right here to the public, oh, going to cost you $3,200 to $2,800 a year per every acre foot, 5,000 acre feet. Take a guess what that comes to per house per year. Comes to the numbers you're showing here, $1,341 per year per house. That's if you get grants to cover half the cost. If you don't, it's $2,680 per year per house. It's your data. I just took it and worked with it. This isn't too far off from what Mr. Kaczynski was talking about at the last water district meeting. People didn't want to pay a $49 per year property tax for parks. How happy do you think they're going to be when they find out if the GA will ever put forth simple, plainly stated numbers that are going to help people actually understand the magnitude of the situation? How do you think they're going to feel when they finally figure it out and get told, well, $3,000 per year is going to cost me extra for the privilege of living in this valley? I wonder if I like it here that much, especially when it's hard to pay for things the way they are. And this is the problem with the GA. That's the kind of stuff they don't drill down to and present to the public. It's been that way from the start. And by the way, you got 5,000 acre feet there, imported water, and I've already addressed the fact that the wastewater treatment plant could easily provide almost half of that. But this was the Gleason plan from number 1, and that's the Gleason number from day number 1. Hasn't changed even in the face of obvious fact. So there you are. Now, it could be made better. I've already addressed previous comments how it could be made better. But serious efforts along that line have not been pursued and need seriously to be pursued. But there's the numbers, and I invite you to ask the GA. Number 1, it's 3 years old, as Mr. Bruin already said. So you can pump those up by at least 30%. So instead of $3,000 per year, it's $4,000 per year per household. There are a lot of households in this town that can't handle that. They'll leave. They'll be gone. They'll be out of here, period. And a whole lot of others who are going to rise up with pitchforks and torches and hope they can put an end to something like that until better sense prevails and all the things that need to be looked at. There's still several outstanding that haven't been looked at hard, get looked at before we start chasing $100 $60 million pipeline that's going to cost us, $5,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 per year just to run.
And I did it right at the same moment. Mr. Heyman, just to clarify, these numbers aren't per year, are they?
No, no, sir. It's one, the infrastructure is one-time cost.
That's correct.
And so I would like to agree with you, Mr. Neal, on the net end cost to the ratepayer. And I think those are important numbers to have, and I can promise you that I will be able to report, let's just say closer to the amount that's going to cost, the individual ratepayer as we move a little further along. So, so there's no doubt that we will be bringing that to you. So,
How many individual households do we have as ratepayers? Do we know?
is it?
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. No other public comment from the floor? Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
It's Mike Sinat. I was going to call in about that chart too. That was, I don't know, Councilman Heyman, you shouldn't have done that. You know that's going to cost a hell of a lot more. The other point I'd like to make, that's a 3-year-old chart. It's probably double today. It's probably going to double again between now and 10 years from now. So your projections are just as good as mine. I would listen to Mr. Ellis. He's probably one of the top experts on underground water in this valley. You should be fortunate that he's willing to come in and discuss these matters with you. He obviously loves this valley, and he knows how important this is. As for offering alternative projects, Mayor Brune, I've met with you and I've met with Councilman Blades, and I've outlined an alternative project that includes imported water, but it doesn't come from the Antelope Valley and the State Water Project. I'd also like to point out that you don't know how much water we need to import. You don't know how much farmland we'll be able to fallow. There's been no effort to fallow the farmland. You don't know what the results of the adjudication are going to be. That's going to reset the table on all the numbers. You don't know what the new model for the change in groundwater storage is going to tell us. Maybe we're recharging at 7650. Maybe we've got more. Maybe we've got less. So my point is, I've offered a project. It's an elegant project, and it involves the wastewater treatment facility, and it involves LADWP, and it involves the city council to stand up and say, what we have right now is not affordable and it's not feasible. And you can argue all day long trying to tell us that it is, but you don't have enough information. You don't have a route. You have no idea how this is going to play out. And right now we're heading into an economic crisis unlike anything any of us have ever seen before. So I would suggest that everybody cool it. I'm going to try to cool it. This is going to take a lot longer time than any of us can imagine. And until we sit down and talk about these things and the city stops its animosity to the water district, and that's where the problem is. You've been nothing but disrespectful to the water district for the last 8 years. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do I have any other callers on the phone?
Good evening. This is Kathy Brown calling in. Thanks, everyone, for all the information tonight. There was a question brought up about what was the latest going on with the adjudication, and I'd just like to make a comment. On the Indian Wells Valley Water District website, which is really good, there's a tab that says Basic Adjudication. If everyone taps that, you'll get the latest information. The next meeting on the status of the adjudication will be December the 2nd at 1:30 in the afternoon with Judge Claster. And you can call in and actually listen to that meeting, and that will give everybody a current status update on what's going on with our adjudication. That's all I wanted to say tonight, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
One of the things I want to point out too is that, you know, the water district doesn't need 5,000 acre feet. It's 2,500 acre feet, so that would bring the cost down too. So I mean, there's a lot of specifics in here that, you know, a lot of people don't realize, but
there's variables. Are there any other callers on the phone?
This is Ronald Porter.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, the one thing they're not talking about, and that's the only people that are going to be able to tax for this are the water district users. And we're being overburdened right now with it, paying for the GA and everything else. I understand the private well owners, they have no business, but I don't understand why we can't address that issue. The other thing I have to talk about is there's so many other options that we're not looking at, and they keep saying they've been looked at, and I just don't believe it. A desalination unit set up properly can be cost effective. Trona would have used our water from the sewage plant, except that they got too nasty with them. And if we get the water directly out of the aqueduct, it doesn't have to, if we take it down and let the farmers use it, it doesn't have to be treated at all. I don't see people looking at true options. But the biggest problem here is we have the California Water Board and our local board. They're all non-elected people that don't answer to the people. We have no control over them. But what the people of Ridgecrest really need to understand is one thing. RGA is nothing but a slave to the California Water Board. We don't have our own GA. They're going to be the ones dictating to us. We're just servants to them. And that needs to be understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other callers on the phone? Okay, we'll go and bring it back to council. Are there any additional council comments?
Yeah, real quick. So I had brought up at some point when I was on the council, I think it's 2020, I don't know, maybe 2021. The years are starting to blend together. The meetings starting to blend together. And I had a discussion. I'm getting old, Chief. I'm getting old. I had brought up the idea of there being an elected board for the Groundwater Authority. And I asked Peggy, how had things progressed? And I can have you answer that question now. And you said that it was a discussion at some point for there being electeds, but there was so many different people that it was decided that a joint powers was the way to go. Now, it's not true that the people aren't accountable, because Scott Heyman is so accountable that this council jokes about it being a kiss of death, being on that Groundwater Authority, being on that board. As soon as you get put on the ground, if you're that guy, guaranteed you're not getting elected just because the GA is so unpopular. You're very accountable to the voters. Scott Heyman's very accountable. I'm not really looking directly at you, Mike. I'm trying to just look around the crowd. Yeah, I don't want you to think that I was directing that at you. Well, I mean, you know me. If I have something to say to you, I'll just say it. So that needs to be understood, because I've heard that said, I've seen it, I've heard it in person, I've heard it on social media. That's not true. Same thing. I mean, the county representatives, obviously, that's a little bit different. Those politics are different. But it's a rough go if you're an elected representative sitting on that board. Thanks for the presentation, Scott. I appreciate you dragging the slide back up and throwing it up here. I heard, I think it was, I'm just trying to go right back through the public comments in my head. I heard Mike Sonat say that we've been nasty with the water district. There's been words throughout the months and throughout the years, but I don't know how you quantify. Yeah, there's been some comments around this board. Maybe we, as this council, maybe we get too used to the treatment, like, right, the way we get talked to. Maybe we get too used to that. What's that? I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know. No, actually, I'm sitting here pontificating, Mike. What I'm saying is maybe we get too jaded. Maybe other, maybe the water district's not, maybe they are used to it. I don't know. You give them a lot of grief. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't think that we were treating the water district that bad. So maybe if they're out there listening, which they probably are listening to this, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm open to it. The other thing is, at least your council, and I'm sure members of that groundwater authority have to understand, we see these, and this isn't a game, at least it's not to me. This isn't a game. These are very dire consequences. Every decision, it's not just politics. This is like, especially with the state involved, you got to be playing chess, man, 3D chess if you're a Star Trek fan. So there's nothing, there's nothing easy about this stuff. So if you hear somebody saying, well, we wish the water district did this, or we wish they did that, it's because they got the most stake in the game. They got the most pieces of the puzzle, right? They're playing they got the bigger share. So yeah, it's natural for the whole community, us being representatives of the community, be like, hey man, it's not, I'm sure they shrug it off. They take it in stride. So I don't want the public to get some kind of view that the city council has some problem with the water district. It's not true. I have no problem walking up and joking with every single buddy who's on that board. If they have a problem with us, that's fine. I guess that's on them. But I think that needed to be said. I don't want public comment to end on this topic for somebody to think that there's some kind of big issue or problem. There's no drama going on, not that I'm aware of, besides what's going on in the courts. And that there is very real stakes of stuff going on in the courts. And it's not all pretty, but that's what we got lawyers for. So.
Any other council comments? I'm just going to say, Ridgecrest, we're better than this. Okay, moving on. Next item is item number 4, a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council to appropriate an additional portion of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for inspection services on the Race Communications broadband installation project.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Actually, I want to introduce myself. I'm Quinn Ortega. My first council meeting. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Hold on a second. I think we need to turn your microphone on.
There we go.
And sometimes they have to be held pretty close to the.
Yeah, you have to talk directly into it.
To the input. Here.
It's green, so just lightly touch it.
All right, I think it's on. Hi, I'm Quinn Ortega. I'm glad to be here. My first council meeting. And thank you guys for having me here.
You stole my thunder, man. I was going to introduce you. Anyways, tough act to follow, but so as you know, we had a grand master plan to get broadband to everybody's front door. We decided to not take a back seat, but take a front seat and cover some costs of inspection so we could implement a full build out of our community for a fiber backbone internet. Well, our grand master plan didn't go as planned. We were hoping to have, we had 2 entities that were coming to build fiber internet in the area. We were hoping to be able to have 1 inspector for 1 entity, 1 inspector for another entity, and be able to share the burden for both of them to where if we have one day that Race needed more inspection, this inspector could bounce back and forth and aid, or if Frontier needed more inspection, the other inspector could bounce back and forth and aid. Frontier had a subcontractor that was out that started, went about a week, and then they unfortunately had to close their doors. So they had been scrambling. So our thought process to be able to share the cost burden and to keep the cost burden down on the utility companies, because we felt that this was a great project and we wanted to see the community have viable fiber internet, and we wanted all of the city of Ridgecrest to have it. Didn't pan out. So as you know, when we entered into the contract, we signed an agreement that basically said that we would, and don't want to butcher the language. That the city would use ARPA funds to pay for inspection costs for the project to facilitate a complete build-out of the fiber network throughout the city as more specifically depicted on the build-out map. Obviously, I don't have Exhibit A here. I think we remember it was all the south end of town on the south side of College Heights area, absolutely. So with that, there was a caveat that said that the city, in order to remain a de minimis partner, which is where we get into the fund prevailing wage stuff, that we have to stay under 2%. We went to RACE to make sure that any contribution that we would be applying additional for inspection services, basically to protect us on the back end, that we would not take them over what that 2% threshold would be and put us into a situation that could garner litigation, things like that. So their finance department got back to us, said that they felt that the auditable total for the project is around 19 million. Thus, the max that we can contribute is 380,000. Therefore, I am here today. We think we have this number to ask for the max, so that way we have what we need to cover on our side. Anything that we go over, we will then request RACE to refund it. So they will send us a deposit check, so that way we have a deposit to work out of, and it basically will backfill the cost to the city from there. So with that, we're asking for an additional appropriation of $229,999 to get us to that magic number, so we can guarantee and facilitate a full build-out of the fiber infrastructure to the city. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, sir. So let's start with the couple simple ones, okay,
Mhm.
which is, let's start with Frontier's project was not in perception when we approved the first allocation for RACE, correct?
Correct. It came, well, yes and no. They had already contacted us about it. We didn't know what the full build-out was going to be, but as it progressed through, when we asked for this number and we built the contract for what we were doing to aid RACE, we felt that with the timing of the projects and what they were telling us, we could see some significant cost savings for both utility companies and ourselves with the amount that we're contributing, if we can have two inspectors that can do both projects. So on heavy days for Frontier, they would get a benefit, and on heavy days for RACE, they would get the benefit.
Right, but Frontier was still in infancy.
Correct.
It hadn't matured, how we,
It
yeah,
wasn't-
we'll say it that way, as far as scope and needs.
Correct.
The second is, this is not funds being paid directly to the company or to RACE Communications. This is actually for our inspection services, correct?
Correct. So there's no money that changes hands on this thing. Basically what it is it back feeds the city for the money that we are spending on the inspection service, because we don't have a large enough staff to staff the amount of people that they have out there.
Okay. And failure to be able to properly inspect and in the timely manner would have what effect on both projects?
A massive effect, and really it wouldn't be an effect to their project. It would be an effect to our constituents, our people, because contractors only have a liability of a year for any work that they've done and a guarantee that they have to follow for a year. So if they put a sidewalk in with substandard compaction and it fails 1 year and 1 day after, guess whose burden that is to fix it? That is ours.
So this reallocation of funds is not actually spending more money directly to a company or to a business. This is about ensuring that the project that we have embarked on with multiple vendors, in this case, RACE and Frontier, is done to the quality that our citizens expect.
I would agree with that, other than it is not directed to the Frontier project right now. It is directed towards the RACE
Okay.
project,
Okay.
towards inspection on the RACE project.
Okay. But it's making sure that the quality of the work that we've received meets our citizens' expectations.
Meets our city standard, absolutely.
Okay. Other council questions, comments?
I wanted to understand the difference and how it affected both Frontier and Race, and thank you. That was my question.
I just want to thank you, Travis, for a great explanation of it. You made it clear, and thank you. I have no other questions.
Solomon?
So, Mr. Reed, you are asking for an increase from 150,000 to 430,000, right?
To 379,999. Anything that is above that will be directly paid. The inspection cost to the city will be paid for by Race Communications. We estimate the grand total based on when we think the build-out will be now. Obviously, with supply shortages and things like that, this has gotten drawn out longer than the city would like, and also than Race would like, and also I'm sure HP and all their subs would like. So with inflation, with lack of shipments coming to places, and with boxes being not readily available and hard to find, we've seen some delays that I feel were outside of the control of both contractor, utility company, and ourselves.
So the original was not properly estimated?
So
Can we say that?
I would say the original was properly estimated for the timetable we were given based on how we were trying to benefit both utility companies and ourselves and keep costs down for what we are contributing, keep costs down for inspection services for both entities, regardless of the fact that we had a contract, we were aiding with this to get a full build out. It still is in the best interest of the public, and in my opinion, and it still is a, what was I gonna say? What we needed to do as a city to facilitate the build out. I mean, we negotiated it. We think we talked about it at nauseam multiple times, so.
Yeah, one thing we have to remember is this is American Rescue Plan funds. This is not general fund money. One of probably the 4 prime criteria for this ARPA money was broadband expansion within the community, so this does fit well within ARPA, correct? You know, there obviously was a miscalculation of how much inspection fees were going to be needed, but at the end of the day, we did negotiate a contract, a service to the community for a full build out of the community, as well as fiber at our intersections and fiber optics in our parks. So this is a very good project for the city. It is, the money we're contributing to this is less than 2% of the project cost, and it still is a significant benefit.
Sure, I totally agree, it's a good project.
Yeah,
I'm only worried about the cost. So this estimate of 150 was done by Race or by the city?
By myself and our consulting team, based on the project timeline that was available to us at the time, and how we felt we could utilize 2 inspectors, 1 on each project for inspections that needed a second inspector, or if they had multiple crews one day, 1 crew on the other one, just to be able to have 2 inspectors that could work on 1 project. But that didn't pan out, and with how much they've ramped up lately, it's been clear to me that we needed 2 inspectors on this project. So probably more of an oversight on my part. I should have done 2 inspectors to begin with and been safe, but.
And it says here, upon approval of these appropriations, staff will request an additional 50,001 from Race.
Correct.
So why can't we have them spend that money first? Instead of we spending our money first?
So because with our agreement, we basically agreed that this ARPA funds, our agreement with them for the full build out of the city, for fiber optic to our intersections and fiber optic to our park, that we would cover the inspection costs. That would be our contribution to the project in order to get these 3-4 items, and internet to City Hall for a duration of time. I think it was 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, why are we asking them to give 50,000 then?
So we're asking for them to give 50,000, so we have it sitting in an account for what we estimate based on how things have been going. The total time period that it's gonna take for when we can say inspection is over, we estimate that it's gonna end up being around $430,000. And we
don't want to go over the 2% contribution because that means that we are no longer a de minimis contribution and we don't meet the waiver code and it embarks prevailing wage for basically the entire project. So it's the most that we can contribute and that still be treated like a private project, which is for the public benefit.
Are we still on target for the completion date for July 1st, 2024?
For everybody being lit up, yes, they're trying to have a full build out of everything to China Lake Boulevard, South China Lake Boulevard by the end of the year. That's what they're trying to have all their backbone in and then have everybody that wants service to be able to, not that wants service, to have everybody that has backbone to them to have the ability to have service by that date.
Last question, what happens if we don't give this money?
We're in breach of the contract, and then I would say that they're not obligated to put drops anywhere, but I think that's probably a better.
How is it a breach of contract? The contract says 150,000. So
I think what would happen is that we would bear the burden of the costs above 150,000 out of our budget, is where we would be. We wouldn't be in breach, we'd just be responsible for the inspection services. And so if the inspection services went to 300,000 and we had only budgeted 150, we'd have to find the 150,000 somewhere else within our budget. And that's why we're coming back to council, because I would prefer to use ARPA money, which is money that can be used for this purpose, for that purpose. It just put us in a bind budget. We would just have to find it elsewhere in the budget to move it. And that's why really this is just a request for a budget adjustment using ARPA funds. But Mr. Reed's going into more detail to kind of explain to council why we got here instead of just asking for a budget adjustment and, you know.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. Well, no, not at all. No, that was, thank you, Solomon. That was very comprehensive, as always. And I think between your explanation and Solomon's questions, I don't have much else to expand upon. But I guess I'll just make the comment that I appreciate you put in the foresight, right, to make stuff like this happen. It's important to the community. And, when we look at things that can be racked and stacked for using ARPA dollars, I think this is a big win. So, much appreciated, Mr. Reed. Thank you for being here tonight.
No, thank you guys for having me here.
Yeah. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I have a quick question. So, is it likely that the full amount will be spent on inspections for completion of the build-out?
You're talking about the 430 or our additional appropriation?
Well, the total amount with our appropriations, or,
With races and ours?
Yeah.
My guess is we'll be within $10,000 of that.
Okay, because, the second paragraph, it talks about the inspection will be continuous and will keep future repair costs which are outside the limits of the state, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't know if that would be.
So I probably should have worded that a little bit different. Continuous inspection is an engineering term. It just means that you have somebody on site the whole time or periodic. I should have probably used a different word than continuous.
No, you cleared that up for me quite fine. So, okay, thanks.
So I only have one more comment, and then I'll reach out for public. Travis, how many projects that we have going right now have had price increases as a result of the supply chain or inflationary changes?
The one we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Oh, Lord, Measure V, 2021.
How about we just say all of them?
Pretty much all of them so far. I can name 4 off the top of my head right now.
And my point being is that a cost change on a project, the scope of what race is, while it may seem uncommon, is not uncommon. And secondarily, it is we're very fortunate, despite the fact that each of us individually are paying for it, to have the ARPA funds to be able to do this. And without affecting the city budget or the other city projects. So that would be my last comment. Okay, any public comment?
Good evening, Tom Wicknick. Normally, though, I understand everything's up above board here, but normally, though, when a business comes to Ridgecrest, they would pay the fees, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we made a special allocation here for Race Communications, and we're compensating for the inspection fees. What do we do when Frontier wants theirs?
Frontier did not ask for an agreement or do any agreement with us. They paid the full fee for inspection, plan check, and everything, which Race paid the full fee for plan check.
Okay, so you say Frontier's already agreed to pay all the inspection fees?
Already has paid.
They already have paid?
They put a deposit down.
Okay, well, that's good news. I'm glad to hear that. When it comes to inspection, though, if you would just pass this down for me, please. I'll wait for you to get the picture. I didn't bring enough to put one down here in front, so I guess one of you have to share one with Mr. Reed. Yeah. It's a minor thing, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Oh, yeah, here's a pole.
Does that installation pass inspection?
No, sir, where is it?
It's on East Upjohn, out between Upjohn School and the fairgrounds.
Yeah, where's the color one? Get the color picture down there.
It's on Upjohn.
Out on East Upjohn, close, after Upjohn School and towards the fairgrounds.
So after Upjohn School and towards the fairgrounds. So the only place that has had any sort of final inspection thus far is Upjohn from Downs to Ashton to Church, where we're getting ready to slurry.
Okay.
And a couple streets within Randall area, that's Mike Street, I'm not Randall, Peg to, where we're getting ready to pave over in that area. So none of that has passed final inspection.
Okay.
And there's been numerous punch list items that we have gotten to.
Okay. Will that pass?
No.
Thank you. That's all I have.
It's right in the middle of the sidewalk. No, sir. I'd be able to go out with a tape measure and have, that has ADA written all over it.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Chris Ellis, 709 Sidon, Oregon. I just want to commend the city council and staff for having the foresight to put in a project like this. This is amazing, sets us up for the future. Great job, everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
So Travis, what do you do? Are you just gonna kick this? How are you gonna remedy this?
Remedy, what do you mean? Oh, they'll be asked to move the pole. They'll have to move the pole. That's, move the pole, move the guy. There's no if, and, or but. What I'm hoping is.
Is this one of those poles, like one of those temporary poles?
Yeah, so it's a temporary pole, and my guess is just by looking at where the guy is, there was already a patch of sidewalk that isn't there or hasn't been constructed. So they probably just picked the easiest spot and used that for the guy, and off they went. But like I said, none of that area, none of really any of the aerial has passed final inspection yet. Most of the aerial's in alleyways, and we don't control where they put the poles. It's kind of predicated off where the Edison pole is. But that one that's in our right-of-way right there, that's in a sidewalk, that's going.
Thanks.
Any other public comment?
Can I say one thing real quick?
Sure.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, because with how many crews they've got going, how much lashing is going, how do I put this in an eloquent way? Having 2 inspectors on the project is needed, and it probably, to be honest with you, would probably require more. But it's, like I said, in an attempt to make it viable for both the community, the communications companies and ourselves with our ARPA funds, when they've got 8 crews going, it's hard to catch everything. So anything that the public can see that they bring that they think is a question, please send me an email, call me, whatever, let me know. So thank you again.
Okay. No other public comment? We'll bring it back to council. Travis is absolutely correct. And for everyone out there in TV land, If you ever heard the old saying, I can't fix something I don't know is broken.
That's right.
It's that simple. We've been very, very open in our communication, especially over the last 2 years, in trying to give you means and avenues, and please bring it to our attention. I wanted to make one quick point just to make sure that we're clear about the investment gain that we're getting by providing the inspection services. We are gaining 10 years worth of service for our Kerr-McGee City Hall. That is a cost savings because we will no longer have that incurred expense. We also are gaining access points for all of our local parks facilities. That includes any future parks facilities that we're putting the ability to connect to in the future. And we're also getting 100% coverage of our community, where if we had made other negotiations or other points of negotiation, we may have only reached a 95% coverage of our community. And I would argue that a large swath of homes on the North China Lake Boulevard may have been lost in that process with the access.
Potentially,
May
yes.
have.
May have.
May have.
Definitely the southern portion, though.
Yeah.
Quick clarification. You mentioned having it completed by the end of the year, but were you referring to the year of 2023 or 2024?
I was referring to the end of the year 2023. They are
That's what I
pushing to
thought.
have the majority of the backbone, which is what HP has been contracted to do with them. So that's like all your main runs, all your branches down your street. And then Race has brought in their own crews, and they have started doing the crossings and things like that. So they're kind of chasing and trying to speed this up. But their intent is to have all the backbone in by the end of the year. And then my guess is about 2 months to finish all the crossings, especially up on the south end of town, up the hill where they're just starting to work. They just, the first locates went down in my neighborhood, which is towards Bataan and Norma. So they're pushing, and they've hit. We gave them target dates for slurry of 9/15 for some of the streets that we were doing. They hit those. They made all their repairs. They missed one spot that they have to asphalt patch before we go in and slurry. And Ricky Galdo, who's the head of the HP crews out here, is already on it, getting somebody out to get that handled. They had one on October 15th. They missed that by a day, and we were still doing some prep work, so it ended up working out. So so far, the targets that they've given us or said that they could meet, they have met.
All right, thank you, good work.
So.
And that would be Race working towards doing those repairs and things in conjunction with our slurry and streets schedule, correct?
With our streets projects, that's right. So they've been pushing to get the areas that we are getting ready to work in ready, so that way we could facilitate our slurry program and all that good stuff.
Correct. Okay, any other council comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council to appropriate an additional portion of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for inspection services on the Race Communications broadband internet installation project?
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item is item number 5. Travis doesn't get to move. And if you thought 200,000 was going to get stuck in your throat, prepare for 1.8 million. Award a construction contract to Everlevel Holdings LLC to construct the West Ward Avenue Phase 1 Street Rehabilitation Project, federal project number STPL 5385, in the amount of $1,864,716 and no cents, and authorize the city manager, Ron Strand, to execute the contract.
My turn
Mr.
again?
Reed.
So, October 6th, we got our first paving project, the Ward Avenue. Holy crap, sorry, Riley. The Ward Avenue project, bids back. We received 3 bids. I think as you can tell by the total cost of the bids, it was roughly 28% higher than the engineer's estimate, which was done about 1.5 years ago when we applied for the grant for this project. The average cost of the bids were within 15 to 20%, which tells me that staff and with Wildan's aid did a great job at presenting the work that needed to be done because the bids were closely in line with each other. So it signifies more of a changing of the time.
I just want to clarify real quick, since this is a grant-funded project, if I was typically bidding a project like this that was all city-funded money, I would bid this with a Schedule A and a Schedule B, and I would reserve the right to award Schedule A to one contractor and award Schedule B to another contractor. Because we did this in conjunction with the grant project, because it was crucial that the timelines work together with this project, the grant guidelines don't allow us to do that. So we have to take the overall low bid rather than the low bid on each schedule. Schedule A is the asphalt work. It was 1.1 million and change. Schedule B came in at 743,000, which is all the sewer work for not only phase 1 of the Ward project, but phase 2 of the Ward project as well. So, as you guys know, we have phase 2 coming in the next year cycle for this grant. I broke it down for you guys by cost so you could see the total cost. So the asphalt came in roughly 20% over budget and over what we had budgeted for it in the 23 budget. The actual project wastewater, because this was a lot, the wastewater idea came about a year after we applied for the grant, when we realized that, hey, we should probably be a little proactive, and we started going after doing our wastewater work before, and rather than pushing problems that we knew we had for 5 to 7 years until we could go back in with go back into where we had just paved. So we had a much better estimate on that one because we already had inflation built into it. So that one actually came in under budget. We are asking for a 10% contingency for both projects for unforeseen things. As you guys know, if once we did our due diligence, Quinn personally went out there and walked numerous miles to get survey data on it, so we don't have the change orders that we had on the last one, but we don't know what we don't know. When we get into the road, there could be things that come up, and I would like to have a little cushion there. So CM Strand, myself, Quinn, Cherie, we can all make a good call and decide to go push forward and keep a project going if there's a change order that comes up that we do need to do to facilitate a full project. The total project cost for wastewater that we're asking for is $874,436. That's with the 10% construction contingency. And the total for asphalt that we're asking for additional is $233,854.60. The company that got this is out of not Chino. Why can I not think of where they're out of right now? Anyways, not important. I had never heard of. Neither had Wildan, and we did an extensive reference check on them, much like we did for Measure V last year, based on dealings with what we knew from before, and they checked out great. Our Caltrans rep had personally done work with them, and Adam said he would absolutely work with them again. The city of Porterville said they would absolutely work with them again, and I thought one of the big things that really stuck out in my mind is he said that every dealing that he had with them, they were honest, and that they are not change order happy, and that's pretty hard to find in this world, especially on public works contracts, because that's usually where most contractors make their money. So I look forward to giving them the opportunity and working with them. And with that, if you guys have any questions for me, I would field them now. I tried to change. I say the same thing every time.
How much linear distance are we doing with this 1.8 million?
Half mile.
So,
But it's not 1.8, it's 1.1 for paving. It's 750
For sewer.
for 1 mile of sewer.
1 mile sewer.
But it's spot repairs, replacing manholes, coating manholes. So we're trying to set ourselves up with our manholes from now on that we truly get a 50 or a 60-year manhole. So off-gassing is a huge problem, is what deteriorates a lot of your manholes, a lot of the concrete. So with the new precast manholes and stuff that we've spec'd to put in, we're also going to coat those. So we do, the preventative thing is as they start to deteriorate, they coat them, they epoxy coat them. So we're gonna try putting them in and coating them first thing, so that way we don't get any of that deterioration, and we hopefully can guarantee that this pipeline is good for 60 years.
And so, again, half a mile of linear distance.
Of paving
Of
and
paving.
concrete work, cross gutters, a bunch of stuff.
$1.1 million. I want to make sure that the public is very clear on that. Half a mile of paving work is $1.1 million.
And that is just mill and fill paving work.
That's mill and fill.
So that's
And then
2
to
inches
do
off,
1
2 inches
mile
on.
of sewer work,
And it's not a full pipe, it's just spot repairs.
spot repairs, is $750,000, making a total $1.8 million to repair 1/2 mile of road and 1 mile of sewage. And I want to remind, if I could have City Manager Strand, just for the sake of my memory, what is the total general fund budget of the city per year?
17 million.
17 million, okay? And I just want to make sure that we clarify again, $1.8 million for half a mile of road and 1 mile of sewer, and our total revenue annually is about $18 million. Okay? That's 10% of your total annual budget to do half a mile of road and 1 mile of sewage. Guys, the prices are going up, and if you don't think they are, and if you think we can continue to do lots and lots and lots as the price goes up and up and up, you're making choices.
So do you want to say the
It's
good
all
news?
citizen choices.
Do you want to say the good news now?
Sure, well,
How much of it is grant funded?
well, how much of it is grant funded? The key is that this is how we're actually pulling it off, and that's right.
Yeah, that's
You're-
how we're pulling it
You're
off.
beating
You're
me to
right.
my punchline,
That's
kid.
why I said, are you going to tell them the good news now?
You're beating me to my punchline. The key here is that through the efforts of our Public Works Department, through the efforts of our continued grant programs, through the efforts of having a transit program, through the efforts of managing ourselves fiscally responsibly, how much of this 1.8 million are we being able to be funded via grants?
$774,611.
So we are getting roughly 40% of it paid via grants, ballparking.
About 80% of the asphalt cost is what it's covering. The sewer is purely out of the
Is
wastewater
pure,
enterprise
is
fund.
purely us out of wastewater fund. And then, and wastewater dollars that we know we have to do and we can do. So again, I just want everyone to understand how the costs look and commending you guys for the work of it.
Just to give you a little more perspective, the cost per ton of asphalt when we bid the FY21 Measure V project was $123 a ton. The cost for this one, the cheapest cost we saw, which actually was not the bid that we had to award because of the 2 bid schedules and how we had to do it with the grant funding, was $151 a ton. So 151, 160, and 170 were the numbers we got for actual quantities from each contractor.
Okay? Amazing, the cost. Okay, any other council comments?
Could you give us a brief description of the location?
It is Ward Avenue from China Lake Boulevard to Norma Street. And we are going to the gutter line on the east side of Norma because with Phase 2 of Ward, we will be reprofiling the whole intersection of Norma so that way, and on Phase 2 does Norma and Sierra View, so that way our people of our community can actually drive the speed limit through that intersection and don't have to slow down to 25 miles an hour when they go through the dips.
Well, you don't have to slow down, they just, suspension
Pay the
might
price.
hurt.
They pay the
might
price
pay
if
the
they
price for it.
don't. Yes.
Peggy, any comments?
No, I do want to thank you. I do want to thank you for, I don't think I've seen in the past when the comments that you received from the other companies that dealt with these people. In all the reports in 8 years, I don't think I've ever seen those written out. That gives me much more faith in an unknown, and I'm sure it gave you. But the fact that we at the council, I don't think I've ever seen that before. So thank you.
Gentlemen?
No, you give a good presentation, Travis. I appreciate it. Well, there's a standard, there's a recurring question I always like to ask. Well, there's probably more than one. What caused you to choose this specific contractor? Because if you look at what the bids are, it falls somewhere in the middle.
No, it's the lowest.
No. So if the way we had to rate it is off of the total bid. So if you look at the first page, the total bid, the far right column. So that is the one we have to go off. The very bottom
Oh,
one
I'm
was
looking
the
at
engineers.
resolution, yeah, engineer's estimate.
Yeah, so the engineer's
Oh,
estimate.
that's your estimate, and then
Yeah.
Griffith, okay, cool. Well, then,
So
I
they
stand corrected.
They won the contract fair and square based off of the competitive bid process.
Is it, and I've asked you this question before, you gave me a good answer, maybe you can give me another good answer. Is it by law, is there a requirement that we always go with the very lowest bidder?
Do you have two
Martin,
recourses? If you want to jump in, I feel. Yeah.
Go ahead, you got it.
So they have to meet two categories. They have to be responsive and responsible. So in the onus to prove somebody irresponsible is very tough. You have to have a lot, there has to be documentation of,
Failed
what's the word I'm
projects.
looking for? Failed projects, not failed projects, but of unsatisfactory behavior cases
As long as
against.
the lowest bidder is responsive, meaning that they filled out all of the information and provided all of the materials that were part of the bid, and responsible, meaning that they are able to do the job.
Correct.
The lowest bidder must be awarded the contract.
By state
That was
law.
said way shorter than I would have ever been able to say it, so thank you.
Is that what it is? Is that state law? That's state law?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'm not gonna rake you over the coals on this one, Travis. It's good. It's good. I get probably the most comments about Ward Street, to be honest, when it comes to the community not being happy about certain roads. Ward's one of the bigger ones, so.
They should be happy when we're done, and we're also repairing, there's a lot of sidewalk that was in need of repair, lots of curb, under drains, all that's getting fixed as well.
So even though you already said it, could you just give us a timeline?
So we have talked to Everlevel. We are doing our very, very best to get all of the paperwork in place, submittals in place, so that way that they can break ground 1st of November.
This November.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That was a good answer. That even threw Kyle off. That's a good
Yeah, I was
answer.
like,
So, we leaned on them
You threw
pretty
Kyle
hard.
off. That's a tip of the hat. There you go, Chief. Yeah. Maybe wanted to go with December 1st just to be safe, but that's okay. We're going to go with November 1st. Someone needs, did you have any questions? You already asked yours.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I thought so.
I'm confused, so you need to enlighten me here.
Okay.
So the total project cost, you are saying 1,393,000, correct?
That is only for bid schedule A.
Bid schedule A.
Yes.
So out of that, RSTP funding is 774,611,
Correct.
and the remaining amount needed is 618,389.
That is with preliminary engineering, construction engineering, and a 10% contingency. That is what we are asking you to authorize for that portion of the work. So that gives us our up to dollar amount that we can spend without coming back to council for additional funds.
So this is what we need from Measure V, right?
Correct.
618,389.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confused. The resolution says allocate Measure V funds of 1,233,854.60.
Measure refunds of, yes, so it's, you gotta remember, it's a reimbursement program.
So are you asking for 618,389 or 1,233,854 from Measure V?
So there's some already in the budget, so we're asking for you guys to authorize us to enter into a contract for that amount. And I am breaking it down for you to show you what the additional from Measure V is going to be for the contribution for that dollar amount. So, but the actual contract amount for the paving portion of that work is the 1 million, or what was your number again? 1,864,716, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
1864716.
Yes, so that is, we're asking for, to be able to enter into a contract for that amount with a 10% contingency for any unknowns that we might have. And then, the additional funding, so the additional funding from Measure V that was not budgeted for is 233,854.60.
So you are adding the original 1 million and then 233.
Correct, so I'm basically trying to break it out for you so you know what we budgeted up front and what additional I'm asking for to complete the project is what I'm trying to do. And I'm obviously not doing a very good job of it.
That's okay. I'm confused, so that's why. So another question, under the whereas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas the amount of Measure V funds needed is 1,393,000. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
1,393,000 for the base bid and contingency.
Correct.
So if you add base bid and contingency, that adds up to only 1,121,686, right?
The base bid and the contingency is 112 and 1208. So I'm asking for the total amount. So that's basically the total amount.
So you should say base bid and whatever the preliminary engineering and everything, right?
Correct.
Stop saying just base bid.
Correct.
And contingency. So we need a correction there, right?
Other measure funds for the base bid and contingency. Maybe we just say for the project would probably be better.
Also, in the second whereas, under the chart, the number should be 1864,716, not 62.
Yeah, that's also true.
Where?
1864,
It says 64.
The second whereas, under the chart, whereas an amount of 112,168.60, or 10% of the 1862,716, that should be 1864,716.
Oh, he's in the fourth whereas.
Yeah, he said, second whereas after the grid.
The total bid from Everlevel is 1864,716, not 1862,716.
Oh, yeah, okay. Typo, yes.
I didn't care for the 2,000 though.
So how do we want to fix the Measure V funds one?
For the total project, is that what you want to say there? For 1,393,000?
Yeah, because, well, the total project cost out of Measure V, per my best calculation, I'm not going to say true calculation, because I've obviously not done some things right on here, is 1,393 and 76 cents. And then obviously the wastewater is coming from a different pot of money,
Yeah,
so.
that is very clear.
Yeah, I'm treating it as a special thing, but it's one project contract. So I would say the total Measure V funds needed for the project, it would probably be the best thing is 1,393,000 for the base bid and contingency.
Okay, that sounds.
So to be clear, we're just adding the measure funds needed for the project. We're adding those three words to the
Correct.
two whereas, okay.
And then on
And
the.
then take out
and
the
then-
rest of for the bid and contingency part.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
take
for
that
the project, take out the bid and contingency. Because you're correct, it includes everything, preliminary engineering, construction engineering, all of our portions, that's everything.
And I would do the same thing with the next whereas, so you're consistent.
Yeah, just as a reminder, this project was budgeted in FY '23. So really what you're doing tonight is you're approving the selection of the lowest responsive bidder, as well as allocating an additional 233,000 out of Measure V reserves. Otherwise, the balance of the funding already exists in the budget.
Right. And that's what I tried to articulate in my charts, and I will
Yeah.
try to do better next time.
Yeah, and we feel very comfortable. We have about in Measure V reserves. And we know with the next tranche of bids that are going out, we're gonna be using part of that money because there's some projects that we already know are gonna be more expensive than what the engineer estimate was, like Franklin, for example. So we are gonna be bringing some of these back to you that we did have, that we budgeted for in the budget, but we did have a contingency that we left behind in Measure V. Partly, we were looking to do Ward 2 for this year. So we might end up, if these projects come a little bit higher like we expect, we plan on using that money we set aside for Ward 2, because that was just a contingency. If it turned out somebody to do the project, we could snag it. So we'll just budget that the following year. So we do have a buffer that we built in to this for these unknowns.
And I think just given the times you guys have seen with all the projects, every project that we've waited or rejected bids in the past have us only come in as more money the next time, so.
Okay.
So, sorry, with that correction, where we changed 2 to 4?
Correct.
Okay, so that will change the last whereas. A purchase order will be issued to Everlevel Holdings LLC for total bid amount plus 10% for a total amount of $2,051,187.60.
That number still looks right.
No?
Where did I do the total?
So 1864716 plus 186,471, right?
I got 205,177.60
Yeah,
here too.
2051, 18, yeah.
17760. I don't have a calculator on me or my phone, otherwise I would try to do it for you again, but that
No, I
total-
just did the math, and I mean, it may be $10 off. I'd have to do the math again one more time just to be sure. But I come up with 205,187. So 2,551,000.
187.7.
187.60.
So I did, so I used the 2, Solomon, you were correct, so that one should be an 8.
187.60. You got that correction, Rika?
I got 4 corrections, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did I set a new record for corrections?
Yes.
I
think
double checked
you
my
did.
math, and I come up with the
It was
same
so good
thing,
this time,
8.7.
Martin was even catching your mistakes.
I know, man. Well, I had so many numbers floating around because I had to break it out in
In
30
his
different
de-
ways.
In his defense, he did give me the staff report at 9:30 at night one night. He emailed it to me. He was still at work, so in his defense, he was working late.
We were pushing. Any other ones?
Thank you very much, sir.
No, thank you.
Okay. Let's go ahead and see if there's any members of the public that have a comment. Okay, I don't see any on the phones. I don't see anybody getting up. We'll go ahead and bring it back to council for comment. Just one, which is, Travis, thank you for making sure to make that big point, loud and clear, 28% higher. Whew. And we budgeted this, when we were doing fiscal year 22-23 budget, that was May. And inflation, I believe, was transitory then. But apparently it forgot to get on the transit. And 28% higher is all you need to hear about what the actual cost of providing these services are becoming for the city and why that's so important, because the citizens, they love to ask about when's this gonna happen and when's that gonna happen and when's this gonna happen. But then think about just the math, 28% higher, just like it hits all of us in our homes, it hits the city just as effectively. So, any other council comments?
I just want to sincerely thank you for all your hard work, Travis. Though I am asking questions, it doesn't mean anything, but you do a good job, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking the questions because I keep trying to do new ways to show things to you so you guys can see it all, and it helps me to get better. So I appreciate it.
Any other council comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the awarding of a construction contract to Everlevel Holdings LLC to construct the West Ward Avenue Phase 1 Street Rehabilitation Project, federal project number STPL 5385, in the amount of $1,864,716 and authorize the city manager this, and this is, we're just awarding the contract through this resolution, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And authorize the city manager, Ronald Strand, to execute the contract. Do I have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion.
Please
approve-
vote. Sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean to speak over you.
I know I had to say as amended.
5
on
ayes,
there.
motion
Thank
carries.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I picked a doozy for you to come to. I normally don't make this many mistakes.
Don't worry, Quinn, we have very high expectations.
All right, well, thanks.
Actually, technically, we have very low expectations.
It's
but-
a tough act to follow. It's gonna be hard to follow Travis Reed, but hey. I'm gonna welcome all the questions as well, so.
Appreciate it,
You're
sir.
doing good.
Okay, next is our committee reports. I believe the only one that we had is, did RCVB finally meet today, or I thought it was canceled, right? Yeah, so the only committee was Finance Committee, so that's you and me. Finance Committee met on the 11th. I want to once again thank Councilman Blades and Girl Scout Unit 8004. Am I correct? Hey, my memory's actually working. For coming in to visit. It was a lot of fun talking about interesting stuff. We talked about dogs, and we talked about
Animal shelters.
animal shelters, and the girls had a lot of entertaining. And then following the finance committee meeting, Councilman Blades brought them in here and let them sit on the dais and debate the issue of the day for our children, which probably was the pool.
Well, it wasn't the pool. What I had them debate, because it's a hard decision, I asked them to think about, do you want to allow pools in Ridgecrest? Think about that. Everybody loves swimming, but what if the city doesn't have enough water for a pool?
Yeah,
And that makes a decision harder, right? So you got to decide which one you're going to do. And they all folded. They all wanted the pool. They didn't care what the data looked like. So that's, what can you do?
That is how it works. But it was a good finance committee meeting. Again, I'm going to stress that the city has our general fund reserve in good order. We continue to work forward on a lot of projects, and more importantly, looking at our finances on many of the areas where I think that we've failed to take some of the proactive steps. And that's in little areas. That's like business licenses, and that's in how do we auditing the TOTs and how we're doing those things. The fact is that as a community, we continue to grow and we continue to have demand. We continue to have a lower home value than most communities relative to what our property tax revenue is. And thank you, Cherie, for giving us all the great details on why that exists. And I would encourage any member of the public to come to a finance committee meeting to get factual information on property taxes and where it stands. I don't have a whole lot else other than it was a great meeting.
No, there was a couple fine details where, tonight we discussed how, the increased costs for projects has affected all, just about every aspect of construction. And of course, Parks and Rec is in there too. And a couple of the projects that we have,
We're going to have some ARPAs
Bumped
coming
up a
back
little
to we have at least one ARPA project that's going to come back with a bid up.
the quicker.
And that, we don't know the numbers yet. There's, staff might know the numbers. Council does not know the physical numbers yet. But the Kerr-McGee flooring is coming in quite a bit higher than we originally expected. Wasn't it the flooring?
Just a little bit. Not as much as we thought it was.
Oh.
Not so much cost of material as, was it miscalculation of?
Square footage.
Square footage too, so. there
Yeah,
was-
square footage, and
Yeah,
then,
so not
then the
totally,
installation costs went up, so we found a different vendor that we're gonna go with.
So I'll rephrase that. We might have some increase, but the bottom line is, this is what Finance Committee does, guys. This is why the public is always invited to join us, to come participate and discuss where we see our future unmet needs and where we're budgeted to be able to support those needs in the future.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I've said it before, but I want to commend Cherie and our finance department and her staff for keeping us above, keeping our nose above the water. And you're doing a great job in continuing to keep us there. So thank you.
Okay, next is other committees, boards, or commissions.
I have Kern Cog this week. So
Desert Lands, is this
Saturday?
Is this Saturday? I don't think of anything. I mean, I don't know of any others that are coming up shortly. We're in the season where conferences and meetings are all delayed for a November date. Any other committees or meetings? No. City manager report.
Yes, I have a short little couple slides regarding our quality of life survey. You're going to have to help me. I don't have the clicker. Next slide. A couple weeks ago, we launched a community survey regarding quality of life. We recently did one on the pool that turned out quite well. This time we asked the base to see if they could send the survey to its workforce. When the base launched it, we had about 300 responses, and then within a day, it climbed by about 500, and currently we've had about 1,200 responses to the quality of life survey. The information that we've taken a look at so far is interesting, and it's telling. Purpose for tonight is to, try to get the community to engage a little bit more. We're having it open for about another week. I will come back to council with the overall results, hoping that we would then bring it back to one of the committees to look at this data a little bit closer. One of the most important components of this is that we've had about 80% of the people who have taken the survey have actually provided a written comment. Some of them are 1 or 2 sentences, others are 4 or 5 paragraphs. So there's a lot of information that we can gather from that, from the public. It's taken me about 4 hours to read about 900 of the responses, and they do have trends, they do have patterns, and they do have information that I think is important for the council to take a look at, because I would say a majority of those folks that have taken the survey are your constituents, and on top of that, I would say probably a significant number of those people are those who work on China Lake Naval Weapons Center. So can you go to the other slide? Correct. And what we have here is a QR code that you can scan in to take you directly to the survey. So with that, I should be coming back to council, maybe the first meeting in November, to discuss the results and then discuss with council which committee you wish that to go towards, so we can discuss those issues a little bit more. And the next topic is answering the questions regarding the wastewater facility. We are moving along with the 30% design process. Currently right now, myself, Travis Reed, and Jim Humphrey, your plant manager, are meeting weekly with the design consultants. Right now we're working on the site plan, we're working on the basic design of the office building, what's in the office building, the maintenance building, as well as a garage to park some of our more important equipment. We did do another estimation on when we believe we'll be breaking ground on the new facility, and we're looking at about, I believe, October of 2024, we should be breaking ground. Because if you remember, we still have to go through the entire architectural design. We have to have the environmental completed, as well as the packet go out to bid, and then you got the deployment time and all that sort of stuff. So we're looking at probably October of 24. The consultant is working with some of our other design consultants, see if we can compress that to maybe get it built a little sooner, but we are fairly confident October 24 will be the date we'll be breaking ground on that. And then construction will proceed for another 24 months after that. And as for recycled water, the Groundwater Authority did get a grant, and as part of that grant, they're going to be doing a study on recycled water. And we're right now working with Krieger and Stewart and the GA folks to look at the recycled water process. But we're not going to need that for a while because, as you know, the direct inject project is quite expensive. It's going to be, has to be, studied quite a bit. And so I do believe that our recycled water will be online long before the direct inject recycled water project will be in place. So that project should not be slowed up by the city at all. And we can come back to one of our, maybe it's time, Travis, for us to do an update at infrastructure here maybe in January. Because I would assume by then we're going to have the site plan pretty much in draft. Right. So maybe we can put it on the calendar for the January infrastructure and then at least present where we're at so far on the site plan. And that's basically just where they're placing all the components for the plant.
Okay. So certainly we'll keep an eye on the infrastructure committee agenda for January. Hopefully if anybody with questions can come find some more information out.
Correct. That's all I have.
Okay, future agenda items. Peggy?
No, thank you.
Scott?
None.
I do not have anything right now.
I don't have any.
Kyle's no. Mayor and council comments. We'll go ahead and start with Peggy, and we'll go right to left.
Did you say me?
Yes, I said you, ma'am.
Thank you, sorry. No, I don't have any. Thank you.
I'm just going to say that the fair is coming this weekend, so everybody come out and enjoy the fair.
Solomon?
Just have a question for Parks and Rec. When are you doing the flooring in the Carnegie?
Yes.
So that's what I'm going to be bringing back to you guys for approval on November 2nd. So once that gets approved, then I'll set a timeline with the contractor to get it installed. But we're hoping to have it done around the same time frame as the partitions, which is expected to be finished by March.
Okay.
So somewhere between November and March.
The only reason I asked that there is chamber booked for 24th for the Economic Outlook Conference on February 24th. So they were told it is not available.
We're
Right.
not really sure. We're trying to move cautiously with reservations after December because of the fact of the construction, and we don't want to book a bunch of people and then have to try to figure out where they're going to go.
Sure.
So as soon as I have more of a closer timeline, we can get back in touch with the chamber too.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
I know that they're trying to get it
Yeah.
done because you're absolutely right, you mere old chamber dogs. I said I'd love to be able to have our EOC with our Wi-Fi points, our partitions, our floors, and let the public really see the investment that's been happening. And I don't know if we're going to get there in '23 or not. Nurse is trying, but with the supply chain challenges and the holiday season, maybe she'll push that out till construction will start in March or something. But I know that hits your summer schedule too, so I know it's hard. I'll do the best I can. Kyle.
Yeah, I usually look at this portion of mayor and council comments as where I try to impart upon the public just my general feel. I think it's on many topics, and a lot of times it seems more philosophical than anything. So I apologize to the public for that, because it seems like I'm droning on, I'm not. What I'm trying to do is give everybody who voted for me at some point a window into who I am, because I think that's important. I think that you can spend 4 years sitting up at this dais, and the public will lose sight of the person that they voted for. And the person that they voted for spends that whole 4 years changing. We do change up here, and I think if you don't change up here, you're probably not doing your job right. You have to, I mean, yes, you come in with a moral code, you come in with holding yourself accountable to a path, and I think you need to continue to always do that. But you have to change and grow and stretch, and I have a great deal. And so what I just wanted to say is that here we are close to midterm elections, and I don't want to really comment on local elections too much. I think that people should vote how they feel like they should vote. I think it's important to always hammer that home. I've said it on social media a few times, and I'm gonna say it here. You'll vote your conscience, and some council member or anybody else telling you how to vote, that's probably not gonna sway you. You're gonna use your beliefs, or you're gonna talk to your friends, or you're gonna believe something that you read from somebody that you trust. But I just wanna make sure that people are looking at things honestly, that you're looking at the topics honestly, from local to state to federal. Don't let people pushing an agenda on you make you indifferent to the truth. And again, I don't mean that just here locally. There's a lot of things at stake in the midterm elections, and I think it's important to keep your head on straight and keep your moral compass moving in the right direction. And two more things, and that is I want to express gratitude. I think if you don't ever stop to express gratitude, then you start to lose focus in life and what's important. And I want to say that I'm proud of, not just proud, but I want gratitude to the staff, right? It just seems like just a cheap shot. It's not. You know, we all rely so heavily, not just the council, but the entire city of Ridgecrest relies so heavily on the city staff. And not just the PD. The PD obviously always gets the thanks, right? But the finance department, the public works department, and the parks and rec department, your movie in the park was a great success, except for when the screen started to go down at some point. Yeah, I don't know why. But I want to express gratitude for the staff, and I want to express gratitude for the amount of public out there that pays attention to what's going on. I do interact with the public, and I will get phone calls, and I do have people express to me things that I did not even know that they were paying attention to. And I'm always grateful that when that happens. I guess I should also express gratitude for my own family for the support they give me to be up here, and friends, because you can't be up on this council. Somebody once told me, it was another council member, that you can't be up on this council and be an island, because you have to bounce things off of people. You can't stay in an echo chamber. If you do that, first of all, you won't grow, but second of all, you're gonna drive yourself crazy, and you're gonna devolve. And the last thing I wanted to impart upon the public, and I mean this to everybody, is have faith in the future. Because if you don't have faith in the future, well, what good is it?
Thanks, sir. So just a couple final parting comments. First and foremost, I want to thank the public that came out today and for continued participation. I don't like the image that is being created that this council doesn't want to engage with its public, when we have been engaging with our public more over the past 2 years than I think had been done in many, many ways, in new ways. And I'm always excited when I meet somebody who says, I saw you on TikTok, or I saw this, or I found out about this, or I got this in the mail. I think there's a sect of our community that doesn't want us talking to our public because they don't want their individual opinions to be diminished. As long as I can stand up here and say, I speak for many, then I can pretend I speak for many, even if you only speak for few. And I think that's what these surveys, and I think that's what the participation and the communication is driving. It's driving that we're a community. And today I had a choice, and I chose to come out of the suit and put on my Scout uniform and have my wife, who was the only time that she's crossed the threshold of city council since I even think I've even been here 18 years. She's never crossed the dais. And my son speaking, and those are important moments, but they were here because they live the politics life every day through me. They live this life of service, and I will tell you that the 10th month of even numbered years in the city of Ridgecrest are contentious months for the people that are serving this community and giving of their community. And so I want to acknowledge the two candidates that stayed throughout the entire meeting. Thank you, guys. Thank you for showing your dedication to the process. We're here through the entire meetings regardless, whether it's an hour before or an hour after. And so I thank you guys for being here versus just showing up and making your argumentative point and walking out the door. That's important, and it's an important representation. I think the other thing that's really important is to remember that everyone up here who serves on the dais, anybody who's running for elected office, anyone who's serving this community, they are always first and foremost human beings. There has not been a conflict between us and the water board other than we have different opinions. They are still people that I will meet, shake hands, talk to, socialize with, attend their funerals. There is no lack of care or concern between those people and us. We simply see the issue differently. And if we can't be able to civilly be able to disagree, then we have lost a lot more than simply our own minds, but we've lost our fundamental part of what makes us a republic, which is the ability to debate and to disagree. Now we can civilly disagree and we can uncivilly disagree, and sometimes we have to stop that process, and I couldn't reach for it fast enough, otherwise I would have got my first time to use it. But, you know, November is going to be here very quickly. I really encourage every citizen out there to exercise your right to vote, exercise exactly as Mr. Blades said, exercise your right to follow your conscience and follow your guide. I guarantee that one thing I will say about every single person that I know is up for elected office or hoping to serve, they at the local level, I promise you, they start off with only one thing in mind, which is that they actually care about Ridgecrest. There's one unifying force amongst all of them, which is they actually care about Ridgecrest. Now, they may have differing opinions on how to care about Ridgecrest, but they still all care about Ridgecrest at the end of the day. And with that, I wish everyone a happy Halloween. I hope I see you at the fair. If you come by the fair and you see this goofy-looking big guy and you're handing him cash to park your car, say hello, tell me your opinion, as long as it doesn't involve you waiting 10 minutes and holding up the line.
Mr. Mayor, also, I mean, the city's going to be there.
The city's going to be there. The city's going to have a booth there. There's going to be a lot of people at the fair. I think this is going to be a great fair. The rodeo is back. They have a new bounce house zone for kids. They have a bunch of stuff that they've been working on. And Chip Holloway snuck in here and snuck out, but I mean, that guy has been working his tail off to try and bring you the best possible community fair, and to him and his staff, I think we're going to have a great time this coming weekend. I look forward to seeing everyone out there, and everyone else, have a great evening.